All right, Dad, let's go back to your preaching days.
I feel sorry for the congregation. I want to apologize to all of you. Look, I didn't know any better at the time. I'm grateful that there was not internet, nor were there any streaming of me. But for all of you who endured me, I'm so sorry. Is there anything else you want me to say?
No, I think that covers it. I think we could just wrap up this podcast after that one. No, let's go back to your preaching days. And here's my question. If you had to choose between a Sunday morning service for preaching or a Sunday evening service for preaching, which one would you have picked?
It depends.
You are full of non-answers today.
All right, then I'll contextualize.
Okay.
Normally Sunday morning, because more people were there, and
Okay.
I want to reach more people with the word.
Okay.
Sunday evening had the relaxed effect to it, where I thought we felt more like family, and it was more like a family meeting rather than a preaching session. But if I had to choose with how many, and it's not about just numbers, it's just how many people can we share the word and the gospel with, I would pick Sunday morning, but Sunday night was very relaxed. Now, here's the other thing. I was doing 3 sermons a week. No, not 3 services, but 3 sermons a week.
Sunday morning, Sunday night,
and Wednesday night. And it was called a teaching session, but from my perspective, I didn't have any fewer minutes to prepare. It was still the same thing.
Right.
And I taught a Sunday school class through the Bible in a year, every year.
That's
52.
a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So I approach Sunday night sometimes with a bad attitude because again, because maybe 30% of the Sunday morning crowd showed up.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, I did all this work and
no one's showing up.
No one's showing up.
It makes you want to ask the question, where did it come from and why does it exist?
And I did, and we're going to do a podcast on that.
I think it's a great topic for today. What is the origin of the Sunday evening worship service? I hope you caught us on the previous podcast. We're talking about the Wednesday evening time. Now we're going to talk about Sunday evening. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the Church Answers podcast. If you're joining us for not the first time, welcome to the Church Answers podcast. My name's Jess Rayner. I'm here with my dad, Thom Rayner, and we love asking questions, particularly about the church. That's why it's called the Church Answers Podcast. And along the way, we love to provide some answers, and hopefully you can walk away and learning more about the history of the church, but more importantly, learn about the future of the church and where God is leading. And so that's always our goal, is to help you think through church and how you can continue to be used by God in your local church setting. Before we jump into the topic of the Sunday evening worship service, we want to thank one of our sponsors. We have 2. We want to thank one of our sponsors, Cheney and Associates. They are an accounting firm, the accounting firm for the church, where they are just helping out, I think, over 1,100 different churches, helping them with their bookkeeping and financial needs. They have decades of experience serving churches. They understand the church language. They understand church mindset. They are for the church. They love the local church. And so if you're looking for someone who can come alongside your church and help with finances or bookkeeping or accounting needs, go check out CheneyAssociates.com/church answers, CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. And they have tailored solutions for every size church, both age, numerically, financially. Go see what they can do for you. They're doing a tremendous job helping out the local church. Also, they have a podcast, the Church Advisory Podcast.
It's a good one.
It is. If you want to learn more about, some finances or some administrative things that are happening in the church, they're on the forefront of this. Go check out the Church Advisory Podcast. Well, we're talking about the origin of the Sunday evening service. Take us back in time. Where did it all begin?
And here's the thing about it. At my age, I'm able to. I mean, I remember seeing John Wilkes Booth pointing the gun at Lincoln. I mean, I have these vivid memories of these historical. No, I think
that took me a second. I was thinking, wait a minute. No, that's okay. That's way before your time. For a second, my brain was like, wait, did he? No, that's.
I do remember watching on live TV Jack Ruby shooting Lee Harvey Oswald in the gut. I mean, obviously, I wasn't there when they were taking him out of the Dallas County Jail and going to put him somewhere else. Can't remember. But just so convenient, they announced that they were going to be bringing him out, and they didn't have any security precautions. And
all right, he's going down JFK conspiracy theories, even though they released a lot of the information. I got to stop.
And you know what the information says? It was a conspiracy.
All All right. Well, so what about the Sunday evening service?
Sunday evening.
You've established that you're old.
Yes.
And so the question was, where did the origin of this service come from? So you established that you were old enough to speak articulately on this topic. So tell us, where did it all begin?
Well, I do want to just kind of give another prefatory comment. This was not something that was present at all in many religious traditions.
Okay.
It was focused primarily Presbyterian, Methodist, and Baptist. I do not have the answer to why those three.
Okay.
As compared to others. So, on the one hand, I would think it'd have something to do with informality, but then I think, oh my gosh, most Presbyterian churches closer to high church than low church. And so I'm not sure they would fit in that category. I did not do the research necessary to find out why it was prominently those three denominations. So that's one thing I want to say. The other thing I want to talk about is signs. I love church signs. I've got a garage full of church signs. I need my grandson to come put them on eBay, but that's another story. Church signs.
Okay.
Next time you are just traveling around anywhere, Jess, anywhere, look at the times of services. Mm-hmm. It will not be uncommon for it to say Sunday morning, then Sunday night, and then just Wednesday. Mm-hmm. They don't explain what they are. Especially the Wednesday one. I can imagine an unchurched person going around saying, are they telling me that they are acknowledging that Wednesday is a day of the week? Because that's all that says on the sign is Wednesday, 6:00.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, and then Sunday night. Why are they saying Sunday night? From an outsider unchurched perspective is really bad. But what the church is saying is, there was a rhythm in many churches that was Wednesday. We covered the Wednesday night service, a Wednesday night supper, the Sunday morning, which we know about. And then most people at least know about the fact that there were Sunday night services, but it was really focused in three types of denominational groups or types of churches. And when I say denominational groups, it also included independent Baptists, so not just Free Will, Southern Baptists, et cetera.
So my next question then, based off what you're saying, was this an insider purpose? Like, did this start for internal purposes within the church?
No.
Okay.
It did not. It
had insider language. I kind of thought that, but it doesn't. So the Sunday evening worship service did not start.
The insider language is an after the fact thing.
Okay.
It started with some neat purposes behind it, but the more we did it, the more we just said, I mean, it's kind of like going into a church and saying the BYP or the WMU will be meeting at such and such. We don't know what that means, but at some point it did. And so for the Sunday night service, there were some good reasons behind it. They were largely connected to culture and trying to reach culture. So okay. I'm going to state that, and then I'll get into some of it. One other thing I have researched, and I have been unsuccessful in coming close to confirming it. I've heard it, and now the more I research it, the more I think it's just fiction that is out there. The Wednesday night service the Sunday night service, got to get these right. Sunday night service really began to grow with the invention of electricity and streetlights. And okay. I've loved the study of that. I loved how the grid was developed first in New York City, and Edison and Tesla were fighting, for different expansion of rights. And ultimately, the grid was developed in one place after another, beginning in New York City. Then ultimately, all these lights were going on. People said, oh, we got lights. We can now have church on Sunday night.
Okay.
I haven't been able to. It seems more myth than real. So I didn't put that in there. Just don't have enough evidence. Okay. I saw the anecdotes, but not enough evidence. Okay. So what is one thing that we do know is the agrarian schedule. And it is the fact that most farmers, and think about this, we were primarily an agrarian farm-based culture for agriculture, for a long time. Mm-hmm. And the farmers would work 6 days a week, right, from sun up to sunrise, and still do. Yeah, you've got a father-in-law that tries to retire, and he just keeps on doing it. And you had a granddad that was the same way, and the agrarian society. It was the backbone of America in many ways, that and manufacturing. And what would happen is Sunday would be their day off. And they not only wanted a day off, they, being the farmers and their farm families, they wanted to be around people. And so they would go to Sunday morning service. Now, most of the services were at 11 o'clock because they still had to milk the cows. And so it could not be early.
So Sunday morning, morning chores, still a thing. Yeah.
Still, you had to do that. You had to feed the chicken, milk the cows, whatever else was part of the schedule. And so they said 11 o'clock, which was a later morning service. But they said, after the service, we're going to have meals, which probably influenced the Wednesday night at some point, but we haven't been able to tie that in, Wednesday night meal. But then we're going to have another service, since this is the only day you can come, and we're going to conclude the day, usually late afternoon, with a second service. I believe that's one of the two main reasons for the Sunday evening service.
It was an all-day commitment.
Yeah, it was an all-day commitment. It really was. And it seems as if the high commitment churches of that day were Baptist, Methodist, and Presbyterian.
Okay.
Can't prove that, but it seems that way. And those were the ones that did it.
Okay. Huh. I wonder what happened if I started telling my church, hey, we're going to be here from 11 to 7. 11 a.m.
I don't wonder what would happen. I think Jerry would be there.
And Mom.
Yes. And say, every minute is so wonderful.
But so in large part, that was the reasoning, is it became a day. I mean, they were out in the fields, for the most part, not around people. And so they wanted to be able to go to church. They wanted to be together, the fellowship, the eat. And they figured, well, let's hear, or before we head back, let's have one more time together. And so the agrarian schedule, agricultural-based schedule, was maybe the origin. At least, like we talk about the Wednesday evening service, we talk about what put it on the map. Maybe this is what put it on the map.
I think so. And then, what was the next cultural shift in America, at least from a vocational point of view, where you go from the farmers to those who work in factories. Mm-hmm. And so now we're going from agrarian-based to industrial-based. And as we go to industrial-based, we have a similar issue that they're working long hours. Overtime for many of them was unheard of in terms of pay. It was very much heard of in terms of work hours that they put in to the mills and other places. And it was a similar situation. Many of them worked the 6-day schedule, and then the 7th day was a day for church. So, Jess, one of these days I'll take you to my hometown of Union Springs, and I'll take you. Huh?
I've been there.
I know, because your grandmother lived there, but I will take you to some of the places that formed the town, like Calgie Mills. It was a manufacturing hub of Union Springs, and it was a cotton mill. Okay. Then there was another one nearby, and the other one was on the east side of town, and it was again a major employer, and so the church that formed was just for the mill originally, and it was called Eastside Baptist Church because it was next to the mill. MILL.
So what I'm hearing with both of these, from the agriculture perspective, from the factory perspective, is that it's a driving factor is just community. Mm-hmm. They worked a ton, and so they wanted to be able to have that time together. I'm just thinking, I'm sure at the time it felt very fast-paced life for them, but I just think in comparison to how quick, with technology, everything we have today, like they didn't have the ability to connect outside of, I guess the point I'm trying to make is we have such an ability to connect, or at least false connections, as I'll say it.
That's a good way of connecting. And the farmers would sometimes have communication with others in the field, but not much. And the factory workers, it was primarily line manufacturing, do one thing after another. You did not fellowship. In fact, it was prohibited in many factories. So I think you're right. And you know what they could have used? They could have used a running break.
Your segues, it's like hit or miss with you. It's like you used to be just solid with them. Now it's like sometimes you get them and sometimes you don't. That one you didn't.
Age.
But hey, if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, why did he just start talking about running? Well, it's our time to thank our second sponsor. That's what this is about. And our second sponsor is Upward Sports. And the reasoning my dad mentioned running is because they have a 5K challenge that they can offer in your community. If you just have one passionate person in your church who wants to help reach the community, you need to go to upward.org/runcoach, and you need to go figure out how they can help you offer a 5K challenge for your community. It's simple to start. You can build strong connections. They have all the tools you need: running programs, training programs, apps, everything you need to help you have a 5K in your community to reach those people. People are hungry for community. This is why we're talking about the Wednesday evening and the Sunday evening. I think if there's an overarching piece of these two podcasts, it is that people are hungry for community. Well, they're looking for entryways into the church.
There's a good segue.
You need to check out upward.org/runcoach and maybe offer a 5K challenge to reach your community to meet that need. So yeah, we're super thankful for Upward as one of our sponsors for this podcast. All right. So
I think we mentioned in the previous podcast, or maybe between podcasts that we're recording, got a picture of Matt McCraw with Jennifer McCraw at a meeting that they were both attending. And Jennifer's the marketing director for Upward. Correct. And I don't think that Matt had ever met her in person. I haven't. I've been on webinars with her, but I've never met her in person. And she's kind of the driving force behind the relationship between Church Answers and Upward. And she's doing a great job. All of them are doing a great job. You and I interviewed the CEO of Upward, so it's been good.
Yeah. So if you're listening to podcasts, they have a great team over there, and just mentioning some of the teammates that Upward has, and so we know them personally. We know them personally, and they're doing a great job. So yeah, go check out upward.org/runcoach and see what they can do for you. All right. So going back to the Sunday evening worship service, we've talked about the agricultural schedule or the agrarian schedule. We've talked about the factory schedule, but now after those two have gone, there was a different bit of a culture shift, in particular what you have called the Sabbath culture. Explain that in terms of how that connects with the changes of the Sunday evening worship service. It's evolved.
It's evolved, but the Sabbath culture is an umbrella rather than a sequential event.
Okay.
We started off with agrarian, then we went to the manufacturing, the industrial. We're not going to a new segment when we start talking about this next level. What we're talking about is basically why and what was going on. So I can get to it just a little bit more, Jess, but the point in all of this is that there was this view that there was something holy, sacred about Sunday.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Sabbath is an incorrect word for that because that's Saturday. And that was, the church worshiped at the beginning of the week. Sabbath was at the end of the week. But the point is still the same. There was a culture that just said, we're going to rest on Sunday. I have vivid memories of Blue Laws.
So both, were you talking about both for the two types of schedules, the agricultural and the industrial schedule? Both of those were under the umbrella of this Sabbath culture. It's time to go and just rest and to be.
And it's biblically influenced, but that continued just through the late 1980s.
Okay.
So you were born into the tail end of the Sabbath culture. There were still a lot of Blue Laws on the books when you were born. Blue Law.
And for us younger people, Blue Laws are talking about just things you couldn't do on a Sunday?
Blue Laws referred to what you could not open. Blue Laws referred to what you could open on a Sunday.
Okay.
Like in our town, we had 3 pharmacies. You could open, they rotated, one every Sunday. Banks could not open. There was nothing open. No restaurants. Everything had to shut down on Sunday. It wasn't because they were, I think if the law had been lifted, they would have all been open. In fact, when the law got lifted, they were all open. It was ruled unconstitutional eventually. But most of it was just a culture shift. But the whole idea of rest and just a time to set aside for God has affected a lot of this.
Okay. So that's Sunday evening. Let's talk then about this 19th century revivalism and evangelism. How does that connect to the Sunday evening worship service?
Almost all of the revivals, almost all of the evangelistic sessions were on at nighttime. And so that helped the Sunday night service to keep a momentum because they were popularly attended on evenings, always a Sunday evening, but also other nights of the week as well. And really with Charles Finney, ultimately all the way to Billy Graham, those meetings were immensely popular. And so there became a rhythm in the lives of many Christians and even non-Christians that we're going to go to church, to use a euphemism. We're going to go to church on Sunday night. It kept the culture of the Sunday night opportunity alive for a season.
Okay. So like the Wednesday evening podcast that we talked about, I want to ask the same question when it comes to the Sunday evening service. Is there a purpose today? Is there a reason to do it? We talked about the Wednesday evening. The idea was, it's fellowship. And the purpose behind it was to create fellowship. And there's ways you can do it even if it's not on Sunday or Wednesday evening. The Sunday evening worship, it was designed to be more of a service. It was designed to be more teaching. So is that, has small groups replaced that? Has your Sunday school replaced that?
Yes.
So
yes.
Is there still a reason to do a Sunday evening worship service? I know some do a prayer time now, but traditionally a second service, and I know some pastors that have done it. I mean, still do it. One of my favorite preachers is Alistair Begg. I think if I follow him, from what I know, I don't know this for sure, but for at least from the sermons I've listened, he'll preach a Sunday morning text and he'll just pick up with the same next, expositional preaching the Sunday evening. If you miss that, then, at least I think that's the case from what I've listened. I don't know for sure, but is there a place to do that standalone, maybe connected Sunday evening service?
I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I would say, while I would say it depends, I would say not most of the time.
Okay.
And the reason I would say not most of the time is if you have one pastor who is responsible for a sermon on Sunday morning, you are asking a ton to have a sermon of equal preparation, equal quality on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Okay, what could be the place for it? I know some churches that use that to train up pastors and preachers, right, and they use Sunday night for that. So there are reasons that you can do it, but my goodness, don't expect your pastor. This is going to be a debated topic, just me saying this. A pastor cannot do 2 good sermons a week. Okay, if you're Alistair Begg, you can.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have his ability. He and I have the same accent, but I don't have his ability.
I've often joked, if I could have an accent, I'd actually be a lot better preacher.
Yes. It just sounds like you're erudite and you know what you're talking about.
He knows what he's talking about. Oh my goodness.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So, okay. So there could be a potential there, but you're right. And I think you're like, why did it used to be that way and versus why isn't it that way now? And I feel like over all the podcasts we've done, and maybe this would be a good podcast. I think we've talked about it, but not directly. The demands of the pastor have changed. Mm-hmm. What's expected of a pastor now is not what used to be expected of a pastor. I don't know. I'm putting arbitrary timeline on it 20 years ago.
Let me tell you from a preaching point of view, expectations. What is expected of Jess Rayner is 5 to 10 times more than what is expected of Tom Rayner when he was a pastor. Okay. The reason for that, the reason why we accepted the mediocrity of the Tom Rayners of the world is because we had no point of reference. We have a point of reference now, and I think that's healthy. I mean, if you say you want to be like Alistair Begg and you're saying it in the right spirit, that's a good thing. Sure. When you hear his exposition, not to emulate or to plagiarize a sermon. Huh?
Not to be him.
Not to be him, but right, to reflect that. I had none of that. Occasional radio preachers just wanting the same, and not everybody even could pick up radio stations even in my preaching day. So I think the expectations are much higher, and I think it's a good thing. But if the pastor's going to put more time into sermon prep, something has to give. Right. And by the way, even with this, I realize I'm taking this too long, but even with the Sunday night service, it was my stepchild sermon. I couldn't do it.
It's an interesting term.
Well, it just means, maybe my best choice. I mean, we love our stepchildren, but that's a phrase. Quit treating me like a stepchild. Bad choice of words, but it was my I love the Sunday morning time.
You weren't invested in it as much.
I wasn't invested hardly at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I at least did 2 envelopes, wrote on 2 envelopes for Sunday morning, only one half of one for Sunday night.
So the whole point is I guess it goes back to the question of why. Why are we doing the service? And it has to have a clear purpose in it. I love the idea of training up pastors, but ultimately it's what purpose is it serving? And that's the big question. And I think over the years, what we've seen is the evening service has begun to fall off for the most part.
Oh, it has. It's fallen off when I was preaching.
Fewer and fewer.
Maybe it's fallen off because I was preaching.
Fewer and fewer churches are doing it today. I mean, I've never done it. I've never, in my whole years of vocational ministry, I've never done a Sunday evening service. I did preach many of them when I was trying to get preaching experience.
They plugged you into Sunday night.
The pastors love it. Oh yeah, you come take Sunday evening. That's great. Come take it.
My first preaching time was at the Wilmore Avenue Methodist Church in Anniston, Alabama on Sunday night. That was a service where I was so nervous I did not know if I could even speak, and didn't realize that your mother was so nervous that she was getting sick to her stomach waiting on me to preach.
I think my wife has had some similar experiences there as well. So, it's thinking about the Sunday evening service. If you have it, ask the question, what's the purpose of it? Now you know the origin. Now you know the history. Now you know why you've gotten to where you are. The question is, are you doing it just because you've been doing it, or is there a new purpose to it? Maybe if you don't have a Sunday evening service, maybe you're thinking, is there a time where I can do additional Bible teaching? Figure that out. Figure out what works for your context. I think at the end of the day, anytime you can get people together and study God's word, it's a win in any capacity. And so maybe it's a Sunday evening service, maybe not. But here's something that's definitely not a maybe. It's Cheney and Associates. When it comes to finances, when it comes to bookkeeping, they know their stuff. And so there's no negotiating. There's no thought about this. If you need help with any of those needs in your church, go check out Cheney and Associates. Go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. They are all about helping you lead. They know stewardship matters. They know your time is precious. So what they want to do is they want to help you with both. Again, they're helping church leaders right now through the Church Advisory Podcast, helping church leaders understand administrative and financial needs. They love doing that, but they also love helping your church directly. And so any church, any size, any budget, go check out Cheney and Associates at CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. If you got a bookkeeper retiring, now's a great time. Go check them out. We're super thankful for them. Well, Dad, we've talked about 2 things that I've never done: Wednesday evening in our previous episode, and then Sunday evening in this episode.
And we've talked about one thing I've never done.
Good sermons?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Was that your answer?
Mm-hmm. That's
We're
sad.
on the same wavelength.
Yes. That's really sad.
You were doing self-deprecating humor. I was just doing deprecating humor.
No, it's the purpose is not self-deprecation. The purpose is factual reporting.
Yeah, well, it's still that kind of humor. So, hey, we love it. We love it that you're joining us here on the Church Answers podcast. Again, the whole point is we're asking those questions about the local church. And along the way, we're providing some answers. That's our job, and that's our joy. That is the reason we have this podcast. And we hope that you continue to join us. By the way, if you're listening to this podcast, give us a like, give us a share, give us a comment. We always love those anytime we can connect with you. If you ever have any specific questions that you have, ask us, put it in the comments, send us an email, let us know. We'd love to answer those questions. Well, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. We love having you on the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.